everyone. Welcome to another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. We have Shane Wooldridge. I don't know if I said the name right, but we'll find out here shortly. From Evergreen State Reptiles with us tonight. I'm pretty excited about this episode because Shane and I have been trading snakes back and forth and working together over the past year, so this is going to be a fun one. Once again, because Matt and I are two of the busiest human beings on planet Earth, we're a little bit out of our cycle or rotation, but we're doing everything we can to get back on it. So to give you an update about what we've been doing over the past couple weeks is, to be blunt, a lot. So I went to Costa Rica for the university the last week of April into the first week of May. And I went down there because we're working with a group down there, and myself and another professor are serving as consultants for the development of a field station, which hopefully the West Liberty is going to be using into the future. So there's going to be a whole lot of tropical herping in my future, which is pretty wonderful, I'm not going to lie. But that was the trip that got canceled, if you follow our podcast, and it ended up hitting where I had to go down there for a week. Then I came home straight into finals week, was home less than a week, and then went right back down to Costa Rica for another week. So it's been an absolutely nutty month, but, you know, I can't complain. I went to Costa Rica twice in 3 weeks. So, yeah, there you go. As far as herping down there is concerned, first time in my life I went somewhere where there were snakes everywhere, and I just didn't care. I was chasing sloths and anteaters and all kinds of crazy stuff. Chasing's too strong a word. I was respecting their space and looking at them from a distance. So there we go. We'll leave it at that. I saw 2 snakes while I was down there. That was it. A ton of frogs. Fell in love with toads. Species of snakes, for those interested. I got a species of Coronius, the machete snakes, which was pretty cool. They're faster than a racer. So I saw a blur. I don't know which species I encountered. And then I got the holy grail of venomous snakes. I saw my first fertilance at a distance. Wasn't on top of it, but that was pretty awesome. That is an imposing beast. And that is all I'm going to say about that. Other things that I got to experience while I was down there. I got to go to Reptilandia, which is Quetzal Dwyer's passion project down there, and I can't say enough good things about Reptilandia. The enclosures were epic. That's best reptile facility I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of reptile facilities because for my job with the herpetoculture stuff I do with the university, I try to go to as many of those as possible. So if you're ever down in that neck of the woods, you need to check that out. And I will fully admit, after seeing that facility, I am pumped to see what him and Ari are making in Texas. So this is going to be pretty freaking cool. And then on the breeding side of things for me, I was walking students through false water cobras hatching. Of course, all the eggs hit when I was out of the country, but we have good people at West Liberty, so we've got eggs in the incubator. I think we're well over 200, maybe up to 300, somewhere between 200 and 300 now. And some pretty cool clutches, drops, nothing overly exciting, but for me, first time. So I have a clutch of what was formerly called Lampropeltis getula sticticeps, Outer Banks king snakes on the ground, which is pretty cool. That's a special snake to me, given that I spent my summers on the banks growing up. And today, we have a black pine pair that was donated to the school with Jen Joseph, who we had on the show. And we got 6 perfect eggs out of our female today. So that's pretty cool. And then a lot of things I'm still waiting on to drop. So I thought that this was going to be a bit of a wasted year, and it turns out that more things were gravid than I thought. So and other than that, it's field season. And thank the dear Lord, sweet baby Jesus up above, school's done. No more classes. No more grading. I just get to be a field biologist with my grad students and undergrads now, and this is my favorite time of year. Eggs are being laid, eggs are hatching, and I'm running around outside, so it doesn't get any better than that. So that's kind of my update, quick update. Matt, what's up with you?
Oh, man, been still crazy busy with work. Been traveling with one of our mobile labs here and there with some of the guys that are on the team. And off of that, I mean, going into the hobby aspect of it, this is one of my favorite times of years too, especially not only for the projects that I have at my house of personal nature, but having kind of created some joint projects with people like Stan Grumbeck, Clint Bartley. It's fun to experience and create and, converse amongst those projects and keepers, because it kind of reinstills the passion for the hobby. Kind of thinking about what you're going to be pairing, what has happened, what clutches are on the ground. I mean, Clint is just killing it with some of the black rat snake morphs that we've been working with over the last couple of years. And it's cool also to see a lot of people that have purchased animals over the years really starting to get their first clutches too. So, and they also having like the questions that pop up from that time to, incubation questions or pairing aspects. So it kind of reinstills a lot of the keeping aspect too. Also kind of challenges me too as well to think, is this really the right way that I've always been doing it, or is there a different way to do it? But, in terms of off of that, keeping up with the travel schedule as well as the nature of finding eggs to when you come home, sometimes those surprise clutches that may be sitting, waiting for you when you come home can be a little bit overwhelming at times when you get back at 9 o'clock and you're like going down, cleaning cages, but also pulling eggs and clutches from it. So it comes into that time balance that we talked about too, where this year I kind of just selectively bred for the animals that I was personally looking for certain projects. But, that being said, I mean, I think I'm over 500 eggs in the incubator already for the year, with a mix of just different rat snake species, corn snakes, and then some of the different colubroids that I've been working with. Really excited to this year pair up the red and black snakes again too as well. So hopefully produce some more captives for the hobby too as well, and kind of create a stable population for hobbyists going forward. But aside from all that, just staying afloat.
Staying afloat. Yeah. I'm sure it's pretty easy to stay afloat with 500 future little mouths to feed.
Yeah, right.
Good Lord. No. You impress me every episode, man. Yeah. I forgot to. One other announcement I have, it's a pretty big deal. The book. I got it all to Russ. I got all the photographs to Russ, over 200 of them. I got all the figure headings to Russ, all the chapters to Russ. And while I was in Costa Rica, Russ got me a draft of one of the chapters laid out with photographs and the figures. And oh Lord is all I have to say. It's one thing to be writing this thing and have in your mind's eye what the book's going to look like, and then you actually get delivered like the tangible item. That was a pretty cool moment that I had in my little cabina down in the middle of nowhere. So, but yeah, book was, we're cooking with gas, and I really hope that it will be out by the end of the year. I'm doing everything I can to make that happen. So that's an update on that project, which is something I'm pretty excited about. So with that being said, anything else you got to add, Matt?
No, I think we should just jump right in and introduce our guest.
Okay. So our guest tonight is Shane Wooldridge with Evergreen State Reptiles. Shane's in Washington, and he's definitely a Colubrid guy. Those of you who follow him on Instagram or Facebook are more than aware of the many amazing memes he's produced. But in addition to amazing memes, he produces some pretty badass snakes. So Shane and I, like I said, go back a little bit, at least last year, when I ended up with more water cobras than I necessarily wanted and called them. And we basically did a trade. And those of you who follow the show know that I got into king snakes. And the initial round of king snakes that started the newfound obsession came from Shane. So that being said, he keeps all kinds of critters. We're going to go over those animals here in a minute. But with that being said, how you doing, man? Welcome to Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. I'm very appreciative to be on here.
All right. Happy to hear it. Okay. Well, we are happy to have you. So we ask everybody this question. So I'll start with the questions tonight, and just, in a nutshell, how'd you get into this? You always been into reptiles? Did you get into it when, later on in life? Where's your start?
My start is, I probably 3, 4, 5 years old, constantly catching snakes and begging my parents for a pet snake, and they finally broke down and got a box turtles. Had an iguana probably in like 6th grade for a long time, and then in high school, just getting more involved with the hobby. My mom was around snakes, so she would take me, and then she started letting me get snakes and stuff. But yeah, I'm a firm believer that for most people in the hobby, it's part of their makeup, their DNA. It was just a draw, from the very beginning.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I want to explore something that you said there, though, which is kind of interesting. So you said your mom was around snakes. Did your mom support this?
No, I'm saying she didn't like snakes in the beginning. Well, it's not like she didn't like them. She said, it's new to her. So we did the box turtles, then the iguana, and then, I don't know, like 8th grade, she started taking me to reptile shows and kind of having some experience seeing, hey, they're not so bad or whatever.
Gotcha.
So, then corn snake, speckled king snake, California king snake pair, some balls. Yeah, that's kind of where we headed.
Ah, that's awesome. So with, you obviously are into it during high school. After high school, what happens then? So
I played college football, and, no snakes in the dorms, but I snuck a Dumeral's boa with me, and I had it with me the whole time. And,
nice.
yeah, I always had to have something, and it was in California, about an hour west of Reno. So I spent pretty much every day, finished my football practice and jump in my truck and head up to this place called Four Corners, and it was just huge rocks, and catch rattlesnakes every day. I loved it. But yeah, I had a Dumeral's boa with me all the way through college, came home, and I got really into rosy boas because they kind of hit all the marks for a consumer, but they've just never really taken off. You got the size, which is perfect, all the color combinations. And if you give them as babies, they're very handleable. If you don't give them as babies, not so handleable. When they bite, they don't let go. But I had 22 adult pairs at one point.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So when did you make the transition into colubrids and doing this as a potential business?
So, colubrids were always my thing, even as a kid. I caught a lot of garter snakes. That's what's available here. We have rubber boas and garter snakes, but we do have the California mountain king snake in Washington on in the gorge. But nevertheless, just the behavior, they move, and it's just, I don't know. That's what got me. I like the keeled scales. I always wanted a leucistic pine snake since I was probably 10 years old. Still don't have one. But keeled scales are, very much like a rattlesnake. And I think a keeled scale animal is just pretty much the most gorgeous snake. But, obviously I like all colubrids. But, colubrids is and I'll be honest with you. So, I sold my rosy collection, and I got a good amount of money for them, bought my house. We put the down payment on the house with quite a bit of that money. Had to, kind of scale back on the reptiles, working full time, more like 60, 70 hours a week, night shift, this, that, and the other. Just want to get life started,
Yep.
I went to, had reptiles the whole time. I had a black pine for a while there. It was a nasty one too, I'll tell you what. But a friend of mine invited me. He's kind of like you, meet online. Doesn't take long to see who you can trust or not. Mike Roscoe. So he invited me to come stay with him in San Diego, where he lives. And I went to the reptile show down there. Now it's a big deal down there. Super show. Awesome show. Yep. But I saw how everybody was doing it. and I saw how everybody's doing it at home. And I thought, I mean, why am I not all the way into this thing? This is what I love. Like, you should spend your life doing what you love. And I thought like how I would do it compared to how people that were already successful doing it. And, you've seen my booth. I'm kind of a showman when it comes to that. I want to every time make it better and better. And I just said, I can do this, and I can do it to a level that I think is impressive as far as the view and as well as the healthy animals. And it kind of just took off from there. That was 2016. I think I vended my first show on my own. In high school, I sat on the corner of people's booths and sold some cow kings I produced and stuff. I produced my first clutch of snakes when I was 17. So
cool. Cali Kings?
Yeah, just a pair of Bandit I got off the Columbian.com, our local newspaper. I think it was like $100, and knocked it out.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting. I mean, just how you kind of brought up Mike. Mike's doing this now full time and has kind of several different aspects of his business too. From the wholesale to the pet store to all fronts of it. But I think kind of your story here too is kind of something that is common as we mature and go through the adult phase of our life, where sometimes we come and go out of the hobby. And I think it's kind of interesting too, from a story perspective, how people do go through some different phases, but always come back to the animals that they love and have always wanted to keep. That being said though, I know we've talked about, the respective, some of the colubrids ahead, but I mean, having kind of explored your Instagram page and things like that, I mean, you keep a bunch of stuff. You mind going into some of the different species of which you keep? Yeah, sorry. I was texting my kids upstairs making a lot of noise. I had to come in the house from the garage because the internet connection was bad. So as far That's
as
life.
My colubrids go, I mean, I got bulls, I've got pines, I've got gophers, I've got kings, I've got Honduran milks. I got away from the Nelsoni, not a big fan. I do have a nice pair of hypo possible het T negative or T positive Pueblans, and they laid this year. I'm super stoked about it. I'd like to raise everything from babies. When I first started, I bought a bunch of adults. It's like the worst choice you could ever make. I got Hognose, and I've got my Drymarchon, I've got my Musarana, I've got my false waters, and I got my Florida Kings, my Cal Kings. I got one pair of corn left. I just stuck with the palmettos. I got some Annery palmettos. I really like them. I had a lot of corns. I just, we were talking about in the green room, so to speak, kind of just moving up and changing some direction. I really want to go big with the gophers and the bulls and stuff, and the Drymarchon. So 3 different species of Drymarchon. And the Hognose, I don't know if I said that already, and the tricolor Hognose. I think that pretty much covers the colubrids. I definitely produce a lot more other ones though. I produced Arizona Mountain Kings. I produced Kunashir Rats, Gray Banded Kings. The list goes on. I think I've produced 38 different species since 2016. Which I'm pretty proud of that. That's, quite a bit. So
that's a good number. Yeah. Congrats on that. Do you keep anything beyond colubrids for those who might be interested?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope this is not friendly, but to be honest with you, I came out swinging in 2016, and that's just kind of how I am about everything. It's kind of the pro wrestler gimmick inside me. I want to be better than I was yesterday, but I don't want to be second best at anyone. That's kind of like we were talking about the show booth. I want it to look crisp, clean. Mm-hmm. But everybody saw the success with the colubrids because it's a hot market. China started sucking up all the animals, and the values on NBKs, another species I breed, goes through the roof, and some other stuff that was selling, speckled kings and different things were $30 a piece. In 2014. and Hong Kong starts sucking up all the snakes, and South Korea gets involved in Japan, and all of a sudden the value goes up. It's great for everybody. It's great for the animals too, because unfortunately when something's cheaper, you spend some money, you're going to protect your investment. So that's a good thing too. And it's a good thing for us in the industry as well, because to make a living out of it and reinvest and buy more. But what I was going off was people saw that success because I was one of the only colubrid breeders of probably those original 30, 40 vendors in the Pacific Northwest. They saw that success and hey, I love competition. Like everybody breed them, but they didn't buy them from me. They went and bought them from everybody else. And I thought, well, that's kind of funky. So my attitude, I said, okay, you're going to play that game, ball breeders. I'm going to buy a bunch of balls. I'm going to breed the crap out of them, better than yours, and sell them for a better deal. That's why I got into balls. So there's my long story to that. But like I said, it's kind of like, I just feel like those people, like they should have supported me if they wanted to get into colubrids, but they kind of went anywhere they could to get stuff, And I just invested in some diamond carpet pythons, or not, they're not carpets, but you guys know the scientific stuff. I invested in a trio of diamonds.
Ilota.
Yeah. And I really love them. I've always wanted them. So I got those going, and that's it. Balls and those diamonds, and then all the balls. And, of course I have a ton of monitor lizards, but that's, another question to be asked. So yeah, that's it. The diamonds, I'm pretty passionate about them. I've always loved them. I love the Stardust line of diamonds, and I wanted an original stock from the San Diego Zoo, because that's the good stuff. And I want a lineage. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have cared about the lineage of any animal. Like I didn't really know, just like I was more into morphs, when now I'm more into locality specific. That's why I love the Scissors Crossings. I love the Marina Del Rey muds. I think locality specific is almost kind of where the hobby's heading. People are kind of realizing, okay, that was gone because everybody wanted albino and hypo, and all of a sudden you kind of seeing these beautiful natural occurring designs, for lack of a better word, and they're not so available. So I kind of reinvested in some of that stuff too, because the high whites are great, but that's fancy basically, and I like the locality stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, the hard part that comes sometimes, I think, with locality specific animals is, because I've seen it with the mandarins, is all of a sudden you start to see locality animals, and then people that were producing animals for 10 plus years now all of a sudden have locality specific animals. Just because the way that marketing
that's true.
So it is one of those things where, we've talked about it in the past, but I mean, you definitely have, some traits that carry over to the locality. But I think one of the more important parts, especially with locality animals or locality phases, is really getting a true understanding of the area of which the animals are found. And so this way you get almost a appreciation, or you could be sent to a place, right? Yeah. Whether it's in China or Europe or Mexico, it's kind of cool to really get a better understanding of where those animals are found.
Absolutely.
100%.
I got most of my locality specific stuff directly through like Jerry Hartley. He was really big into locality specific. I wanted to get it from the right source and stuff too. So that was cool. And then Tony Lanzi's, where I got a lot of my gophers, and then Jason Nelson, they got all that. You can trust the name, you know what I mean? They've earned their respect. Right. Speaking of respect, Matt, I want to say we never spoke or even messaged, but Mike Roscoe has dropped your name plenty. We talk every day, and he really has a lot of respect for you.
He's a good dude, man. I talked to him a couple weeks ago, so it's a small community in a small world. So
yeah,
excellent. So we kind of danced around it, and you alluded to it a little bit, but let's just hit this nail right on the head. You're obviously a colubrid guy. That has not been determined, so we'll just ask the question: why colubrids? What about them?
I mean, I don't know if we touched on it before the recording or not, but really, like I said, the keeled scales really got me going on the colubrids because I like rattlesnakes. I definitely got caught with a rattlesnake under my bed when I was in high school. But I bought I believe it was a captive bred peach. No, I don't remember what species, and whatever peach is, man, this thing was beautiful. My mom, she allowed the corns and the kings, and she for whatever reason, I kept a clean room. I don't know what she was doing under my bed, but she pulled out a tub and had a little master lock on it and saw that rattlesnake. And I came home from school and it was on the counter. And I said, oh boy.
There we go.
But yeah, I guess colubrids is just, you can see the wheels turning in their head when you look in their eyes, especially the Drymarchon and the bulls. The hognose, their eyes are kind of, they're just anything. Yeah. And king snakes too, they're pretty silly, but just interaction, the movement, and I don't know. It's just, ball pythons sit, carpet pythons, they move a little more. It's like a retic compared to a berm. You know what I mean? A berm can be heavy and sit. Retic's going to move around and explore. But I guess that with the bigger colubrids specifically, Musarana, false water, Drymarchon, just you look in those eyes and they're looking at you. I mean, some of the other stuff, not so much, but they do. But it's just I just feel a better connection, I suppose. I guess I really can't answer like why that over another snake, But other than the keeled scales hooks me, Drymarchon is definitely my passion. But I do love the bulls, and I love hots too. But I mean, when I was a kid, I wasn't. Now I'm like so far away from it. I'm kind of nervous when I'm around them. But when I was a kid, I wasn't. When I was in my teens and 20s, but. You can't have them here. So, and then with kids, kids in the house, I wouldn't have them anyway, but I still do love rattlesnakes. I love rattlesnakes. So
one of the things we always kind of touch or review with our guests is really kind of their approach to keeping or their style to keeping, whether it be cages, heating sources, racks, and just kind of, why you actually pursue that type of keeping style. Because I think it just kind of helps to broadly identify, there's more than one way. And it really helps when, we have people like yourself that have large collections to kind of explain why they use those types of traits in their animals.
So, I mean, I can really go on a run with this and make a big portion of the podcast about this. So, basically, I mean, I keep mine in racks. They're all fairly large racks, the false waters and the Drymarchon, I'd like to get the 5 or 6 foot racks for them. Right now I have them in the 80/16s. I get them out quite a bit, but even then, I mean, I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, why do you have them in that? It's so terrible. Well, why do they produce eggs? If it's so bad, what I mean? Like an animal that's not happy, not healthy is not going to produce for you. I truly believe that. The way I keep my room now is I put a mini split up and I set it to 78, and I do use heat individually on my adults with the heat panels. Most of my racks are ARS, and I don't overheat stuff. Like in the beginning, 10 years ago, people were keeping like hognose at 92. Like, are you kidding me? Like, I don't keep them over 84. I mean, maybe 86 in the hot spot, but you don't have to keep snakes at 90, 92. As far as the heating goes, that mini split is a game changer. If you have a reptile room, you don't have a mini split, you're missing out. I mean, I took a chance this year. I was pretty nervous last year. I produced 63 clutches. 5 of those were ball clutches. The other 58 were Colubrid. And there was probably 10 or 15 tricolor in that because, they produce clutch after clutch after clutch.
Yep.
This year I'm at
one snake.
This year I'm at 53 clutches with no tricolors, and I moved probably 20 adult snakes since last year. I put my stuff down in October 10th. I shut the mini split off. I waited 2 weeks, 3 weeks, shut the mini split off. The Drymarchon I kept the way I keep them for winter, which is a 80-day, 16 hours at 60. That's how I keep them. False waters I keep pretty similar, not so cold at night, but nevertheless, and I brought everything up January 5th, and I started pairing January 10th. And I mean, I'm so far ahead of everybody. I mean, my snakes are hatching, I got over 500 eggs. And where I live in Washington, I can do that. Some people, like if you're in California, Central California, SoCal, you definitely can't put your stuff down in October. It's just going to be too warm. But with a mini split, you can control so much. And then this year I did some new things with lighting. I put everything on digital timers from a cell phone app. And if the lights go off and I need to go out there, I put a headlamp on. I do not turn the light back on. So I gave them, everything had 7 hours of light in the winter. I wanted a seasonal change because even like, somewhere where it doesn't get cold, they still have a light cycle. And I think that really changed production and the health of the snake in general. So, I mean, I don't know if I went off course of what you were asking me, but, right now it's 14 hours on during the day. In the winter, I changed it to 7. And that really helped me with the Hondurans. I was struggling with the Hondurans. I wasn't producing them. And the light cycle I determined is really the precursor for producing Hondurans. I always tell people, talking trash, I could produce snakes in a cement bunker, but I need a light switch. So, yeah, I mean, the cooling is important mostly for the males from what I've determined. I don't know how you guys feel about that. If the males don't get cold enough, especially with the Hognose, the females will still cycle, but personally believe the males definitely need that cooling cycle. What else you got? What I miss? Anything as far as your question?
Real quick, for those who don't know, explain what a mini split is.
A mini split is it's a unit that it's on the component on the inside of the wall, and then the unit is on the outside. But like mine has directional fan. I run 24/7 at like 50%. But you set the temp to 78, and if it's 100 degrees outside, like my garage, it'll heat up to 88. Well, with the mini split, it's not gonna. It'll cool to 78, and like March, it was cold here this year in March. We're in the low 50s or high 40s. That room is 78, even with the garage door, the mini split, and it's so super efficient. My energy bill didn't go up by like $30-$40 using that mini split. I mean, it's heating and cooling the whole garage, but I mean, you can turn it off and just use the fan, which is great too, to move the air. But I put it lower on the wall because heat rises. And my garage is like 15 feet tall. So I put it at about 6 foot, 5.5, 6 foot. And mini splits are just amazing. I've seen other people say it on Instagram and YouTube as well. Like if you want, I mean, really, I don't need to heat anything. When I bought all those ARSs, I kind of wasted money buying the heat panels because other than the balls, everything can be controlled by that mini split, I don't heat my hatchling racks. They sit at 78, 80 with the mini split, even the Hognose, and they eat awesome, never have any problems. That's what I do. It's just pretty much everything's between 78 and 80. And, but yeah, the mini split's a game changer for the reptile industry. And I would think it'd be great for if you were producing feeders, I mean, what are rats best at? 75, set at 75, whatever.
So Drymarchon, that seems to be your snake. You mentioned it's your favorite genus. So what about Drymarchon makes it so?
Well, I mean, the size of the animal itself, the behavior of the animal altogether, the size, just the pattern, the color, the behavior, but even more so the challenge of breeding them. I mean, some people have it down. I definitely don't have it down. I'm working on it. Like this year, I got 6 good eggs from one. She laid 18, and then the other one laid 14 no good eggs. It's the pairing. It's a courtship, and I feel like after this year, I'll get it right.
Yeah, you got to love those species that you don't knock it out of the park right away. And you got to tinker and figure it out. Like that was me with Japanese rat snakes. I don't know what the hell, but it's my favorite rat snake. And I went 4 years with beautiful slug clutches. And last year I finally figured it out, and like all the eggs I've produced, those were probably among my top 10 favorite eggs because it was such a pain in the ass to get them. So,
yeah, I mean, what I didn't realize is Drymarchon breed during the cool season, and they breed the entire time. So you really should be 1-to-1 ratio, because if you switch a male to another female, you're breaking that bonding basically. But the males at that are very aggressive breeders. If you do not pair a male and there's a female near him, he'll wear his face right off. It's pretty wild. Never happened to me, but I've seen it start to happen, and I'm like, holy cow, it's time to pair. My first clutch, didn't get anything last year. My first clutch was 2019. I bought the pair from a guy who bought the male from John Michael and the female from John West. The male was modeled, the female was a straight line. I have the text message and everything, and the paperwork shows male and female from those two guys. Okay, so I pair them, and I put the nest box in with the female. Well, basically, the male was the female, and the female was the male. So the male laid the egg. I didn't sex him because I'm like, oh, these came from John West and John Michael. And I opened the tub, and those eggs were in there for probably 3 or 4 days on paper. And I was like, oh, great. I ended up getting half of them to hatch, but I incubated them at 81 like the rest of my colubrids, and they all had kinks. So that was my first experience. My second experience was 2020. I was feeling confident, had a beautiful nest box in for the female. I knew she was gravid. It was mid-July. I reached out to Tony Lanzi, and he said he would call his friend, the Black Pearl, John Michael, and he said he'd never heard of a Drymarchon laying in July. It's not going to lay. So I kind of let my guard down. I thought, okay, these guys know what they're talking about. The dang snake laid the eggs under the nest box in the wood shavings, and I didn't find them for a week because I just kept looking at that nest box. And Drymarchon are really well known for not laying their eggs in the nest box. I mean, they'll just do wherever the heck they want. So those all went bad, and they were all fertile. Last year I got nothing. This year I got one infertile clutch and one half fertile clutch. So they're incubating at 75.5, and I hope I have at least 6 perfect babies.
Well, yeah.
But brutal.
Are those, so let's say you get 6 perfect little babies. Are those little babies going to stay at Shane's house, or are those
100%?
That's what I thought. Yeah, for the record, all those Japanese
anywhere.
rat snakes stayed at Zach's house, so I know that feeling. Damn.
Yeah.
So then, as far as so, which Drymarchon do you keep?
I've got the Molinas, which is the black-tail Cribos, and I prefer the clean line. The mottled is nice, but I like the clean line. And then I have the Rubidus, which are the Mexican species of indigo. And that's it for now. Well, I have a pair of unicolor that I bought from my good friend Armando. He's on Instagram. He's a great Drymarchon breeder. They're a year old pair, but I'm gonna get away from the unicolors, and I want to buy some Texas indigos. And I'm gonna stay away from the Easterns. I'm not interested in the state line permit, yada yada yada. And really, a lot of people have bought them lately, and I don't see a lot of people working with the Rubidus, at least not the line I have. The Molinas, 5 years ago, it was a $600 snake. Last year it was $1,500. And it's not even that it's more value. It's the more value holds kind of like it's hard to explain. It's not like, I want to make more money. It's just the fact that it's more value kind of brings a different conversation when you're selling it or when you're discussing with a keeper. I mean, nobody's going to come and throw $1,500 down and then forget it in their car. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
They've already done their homework, and there's just, I like those discussions.
Mm-hmm. So along those lines, do you, with your care and your keeping, do you do anything different with the three I don't want to say subspecies because the unicolors and the blacktails are technically the same, but
technically the same. Yeah. Nothing's different.
Yeah, but Eurubidis and let's just say the unicolor / blacktails. Any difference in keeping, personality, same snake, different paint job? What's your
I would say that for the most part, same snake, different paint job. Blacktail Cribos, it's interesting because you would think they need a lot of humidity. If you put them on like cocoa, they get sores all over them.
Yeah,
they cannot. They have to be dry, and it's odd because it's got to be fairly humid. Central America where they're coming from, and same thing. The Rubidis is Mexico has some obviously humid parts to it, but humidity and wetness are two different things. So
totally different. 100%.
I use a very fine mister, and I mist them a couple times a week, but that's not wet. It almost comes out like a cloud. And if you were to put, like I'm telling you, if you put them on wet bedding, man, they get blisters, and they get them right under their chin mostly, and around their mouth. But all you got to do is made a mistake, put them on Aspen, and 3 days later it's gone. But I when I first got them, I straight put them on Cypress, and within 5 days, what's going on here?
Yeah.
So
what about feeding these guys? I mean, a lot of people, as we kind of talked about, I mean, Drymarchon have somewhat of a reputation for their painting ability after the fact.
See, people say that, but I don't get the paint the cage thing. I mean, I don't. But yeah, that's a big deal, and I've seen it a couple times. But I don't feed chicks to start with because you give a chick to anything, it's going to paint the cage because they're just sacks of goo. But I do mainly rats, and I do quail. Quail's different than a chick, in my opinion. But I don't get the paint the cage thing, and I use sandy chips. I use the coarse sandy chips, and I got a little shovel, and I just scoop it out, Excuse me. Every time a snake sheds, I try to change the bin altogether. That's kind of like my little notification. When a snake sheds and I'm doing waters, the bin gets changed all the way. Other than that, it's spot cleaning, But I tell you what, you'll either end up saving money by not dumping so much bedding out if you use that as a notification, or you'll end up with a cleaner cage and not doing a whole rack at once. You go out there every day and you got 100 snakes, you might find 3 sheds. Well, that'll take 15 minutes. You know what I mean?
I like that.
So it's really nice. When I'm doing water changes, I got a bucket next to me and I dump the water in there. And if the deli cup's funky, I drop it. But if it's not, I'll wipe it with a paper towel and fill it up. And if it's funky, I'll dump the water out and then I'll use the deli cup to scoop poop, And I do waters every 4 days. I try to. I do not allow it to go a week because we all know what that looks like. 4 days is probably even pushing it. But anyway, when a snake sheds, I change the tub all the way, regardless. It needs it by that time because, you can't see the pee until you move that bedding and you see what's kind of stuck to the tub. But
So when we were talking earlier, you had mentioned that your Eurubidis were kind of their origin was interesting. Do you want to kind of go into where yours came from and what you have going on there?
So I wanted Rubidis. I talked to Michael about it, and the Rubidis, they're almost like a dwarf species. What's available, they're short and stocky, and some of these adults aren't getting over 4 feet, maybe 5, and that's not good lineage. And that was like 4 years ago. And I met a guy 3 hours east of me in Washington. His name's Brian Whitehead. I met him on Fauna. I still use Fauna Classifieds. I love Fauna.
Yes.
I look at it every day. It's the OG site. I'm not a big, Morph Market's great, but I feel like that's like shopping on Target.com. When Fauna, I feel like it's more like what I was raised on,
It's going to the jungle.
Yeah.
I love it.
And as long as somebody's got sales or post, you're good. But if you start messing around with somebody that's on their second post, you're going to get in trouble. You'll lose. So if you stick with the OGs on fauna, you're good to go. Anyway, so I met Brian Whitehead. His business is High Desert Herps. He's in Kennewick, Washington. He was selling some monitors, and I wanted to get some Kimberly rocks, and we got to talking, and he's got, I still have this Colubroid, I got 8 animals. And I'm like, what? All right. I'm not big on letting people come to my house. I keep a nice house, and I just don't need company. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I said, hey, man, here's the deal. I'm a straight shooter. I'm a good dude, nice house, nice vehicles. Some reptile people are, Craigslist people. But anyway, he's like, all right, come on out. So I go out. He's got a beautiful collection. He's got blue tree monitors. He's produced with them, green trees. He produces with them constantly, Kimberly rocks, Ackies, and he's got yellowtails, and he's got eastern indigos, and he's got the rubidus. So we're sitting there looking at these babies, and they're well started. They're awesome. And I said, how big are the adults? And he's like, he goes and pulls out, I don't remember if it was a male or female. Regardless, both of them were 7 feet. And I said, okay, I'll take a trio. And I figure what I'll do is I'll find another male from someone else, and then use the related male as kind of a backup, because I don't really like, with kings and stuff, I don't mind the relation breeding, corns and kings, but with the Drymarchon, knowing that they're stunted adults in places, I think it'd probably be best to outcross that. But again, when's the next time you're going to find a 7-foot adult? Mm-hmm. It's hard. So, but anyway, we became pretty good friends. I bought in Kimberly rocks from him. He bought false waters from me. I bought the rubidus, and man, I just love him. They're so smart. So,
keeping then, we're kind of jumping around your 2 taxa, but that's fine. So, were the blacktails you got? How were they? Well started? Were they small?
Yeah, I got them on fauna. They were a year and a half old. The dude was moving. He was in Texas. He texted me a year and a half later and offered me twice what I bought them for. He wanted them back. It was just a great opportunity. They weren't adults yet by any means. They were 3.5 feet probably.
Okay.
4 feet.
So what growth rate did you experience with them? Because I for the university, I wanted blacktails. I thought that would be a fun snake. And in the initial wave of snakes that I bought for our collection at school, I ended up picking up a pair of captive-born yellowtails, which we still have, and they produce. They're the only Drymarchon that I've produced. And then I had a small army, is the best way to explain it, of blacktail Crebos. And make a very, very long story short, I ended up getting a male that was like ideal, perfect specimen, 7 foot, 7.5 feet, perfect body condition. And as everybody knows that listens to any podcast I've been on, that was one of the casualties of the crypto when it hit the collection back in 2018, which was like tragic. My coworker, she's only cried over one animal dying, and it was that blacktail Crebo, because he was just an amazing snake. But he's like literally the only blacktail Crebo I have experience with that was the kind of what everybody wishes them to be, because we purchased a lot of young animals, and in growing them up, they some of them would grow and then they would reach a certain point, and then they ended up getting this really weird phenotype where they would get the thickness of that 7-foot male, but they would max out at about 4 feet, and then we take them to the vet and they have spine ossification, so their vertebrae are kind of linking up, and they got underdeveloped jaws, and they ended up turning into these, just, for lack of a better word, genetic nightmares. So I'm really curious when it comes to like blacktail Crebos, like what it's like to buy a young one and actually have it grow up into an adult, what that looks like.
Well, mine were, like I said, 3.5 feet. My rubidus were 6 months old. It like we touched on earlier, it's really the incubation, I think, is the issue with the Drymarchon. Ricky Wheeler out of Texas is kind of a Drymarchon kingpin. Shout out to Ricky. He set me straight on incubation. 75, 76 at the highest. and they'll hatch at 80, 81, 82. And I had one hatch without kinks, and it was going for a good 4 months, and then it flipped. Mm-hmm. If someone, I mean, so you can definitely hatch them at a higher temperature without kinks. And I'm sure that was the case. I think the inbreeding, for whatever reason, the Drymarchon, it suffers over, other animals, balls and kings and corns. I see with Hognose too, though. I feel like the inbreeding with hogs is pretty detrimental to the species. But I mean, it's already a dumb species to begin with. Their probably brain is the size of a seed. Mm-hmm. But I really think that's probably what you dealt with there. You probably had a bad line, some inbreeding, improper incubation. I can't speak for the guy, but like I said, I made the mistake. Hey, Colubrid, my big incubator's at 81, it hatches everything. I'm throwing it in there. And then all of a sudden, oh, okay, well, I should have known better because these snakes are so much different than everything else. I should have looked more into it, but I bet you that's what your thing was. Well, sure. It's a mixture of that.
Well, one of the cool things about Drymarchon is with the Eastern Indigos being federally listed, they're a snake that we actually have a lot of data on their biology and natural history. And what's really cool about that species, which genetically is very similar to all the others, it's similar to the Texas and it's similar to the blacktail, is that the males have these enormous home ranges, and those home ranges overlap multiple females, very similar to what mammals do. So you have and then male territories overlap other male territories. So with Drymarchon, you've got a natural breeding system to promote heterozygosity. So other snakes, when you do telemetry studies, they don't do that. So I've always thought about that when it comes to the blacktails. But then I'm also thinking, you got a devil's advocate, null hypothesis, everything. Am I overthinking this thing?
Well, you kind of brought up a point that kind of makes me question what I was saying, the extended courtship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if the male's overlapping multiple females, that courtship, maybe it's just more timing of the female, not such an extended courtship.
When he finds a girl, he's not going to leave her till he's inseminated her. But in the wild, he's going to, he can pick up the scent trail of another female and off he goes. Whereas in human care, you may not have another female. And I think they're aware of the number of females around to a certain extent. So I totally agree with you on the extended courtship. But anyway, that's just something I've always wondered about with these snakes. So,
I figure it's going to be something I work with until I'm done, and I got a lot to learn about them.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're keeping them in racks. How do you go about that? Like you said, ARS racks or giant visions? Or
I've got them in the I've got them in the 8016 ARS. It's the one with the window, and they're big tubs, but they're not that big. That being said, they don't bite me. They eat amazingly, and they do breed. Obviously, just I'm the one that's screwing that up, the timing part of it. But I would like to get them in 6 foot by 4 foot by 18, or even I wouldn't even honestly. I follow the Drymarchon, the Indigo Research Center on Instagram. It's probably my favorite account. And I saw that they have sliding glass doors, walking into their enclosures. And man, if I ever get a facility or a shop on property, I will absolutely do that because, even for me, not just for them mostly, but even for me, just be able to sit there and watch, and interact. I mean, that's just an amazing facility they have. But I mean, that being said, they do just fine. Keep them clean, keep them fed, keep fresh water, and I get them out often, and I let them move around, and they don't go crazy. They don't try to take off. They don't bite, and I think they do just fine.
Yeah, the Rubidus, I have 2 pairs of them, and I really enjoy them. I think they're one of the more intellectual, curious snakes, but also they just have such a pleasant demeanor too, as well, for such a large snake.
Agreed. I mean, I've never just gotten bit by one to get bit. I mean, they're too smart for that. It's like weird. You know, like king snake, you can hold it and all of a sudden it does the whole nose down onto your skin and then opens its mouth.
Yep.
The Drymarchon are just like, they're aware of you and they're aware of everything else around you. And they know the difference between food and they know the difference between I'm here to explore and look around. But yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I hope I'm not taking too much talking time.
You're not.
But
keep going.
I've actually just recently spoke about this to a few friends. My goal would be probably in the next 5 years to have the dwarf monitors, the Kimberleys, the Tristis, the Ackies, and my Flavies. They're not dwarfs, but they're smaller Sanguana. My Drymarchon, my Bulls, my Gophers, and my Hognose, and the Diamonds, and really work those, really hold back the best of the best, you know, what's produced, and just continue to grow that and focus and hone in. Because I'm like, you've seen my Instagram, I've produced all sorts of crazy stuff. All, you know, like it's all Colubrid, so it works for me. But like I was talking earlier, if I'm not walking around and all of a sudden it pops in my head, I want to look at that snake, and I don't go out there and open that tub, I really don't want to have that snake. I want it to be like in the back of my head. I want to go look at my snakes. You know what I mean? Like, yep. I don't do that with the corns, you know. I mean, the palmettos, unfortunately, you know, looks are a lot of life, and I like the way they look. I'll go look at them all the time. But if I just gave a friend of mine a ghost Tessera female. She's 2 years produced, so she's about 3.5 years old, and he's a corn snake guy, and he loves corns. I said, hey, I got a female, man. I want you to have it. She's a great producer. She's beautiful, but I just, you know, I didn't go out of my way to go look at that snake. You know what I mean? And I could have kept it and fed it, and it cost me $50 a year to feed it and make, you know, $600 off the babies or $800 or whatever. But I just didn't want to do that anymore. You know what I mean? I really want to focus on what I appreciate, what I enjoy, and what gets my blood pumping. So, Hognose, unfortunately, is one of those species, and they just bother me as much as I like them, though.
Well, we could segue to hogs. So you obviously like them because they're the snake that's on your logo.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you might have a little bit of a complicated relationship with our good friend Heterodon. So
there's a scientific name, I know.
Yeah.
Not really. The Hognose are just, you know, they're I mean, I guess I'm not very PC like most people, but they're just a stupid snake, you know. They're just dumb. I mean, they'll bite themselves. They'll bite the tub. They'll, you know, I don't know. It's like, and what I was talking about earlier, when people always want to get in the hobby right now, I want to produce snakes tomorrow. And when I was getting into the hobby again, and the depth that I'm in, Hognose weren't such a big deal. Right now, they're a big deal. They're a hot commodity. And there's adults available. But why is somebody selling an adult female? One, it doesn't produce well. Two, it's old. Excuse me. Three, it's been probably ran out of water 24 times in its life and its kidneys suck. I bought a lot of adults because I didn't know any better, you know. No one's there to say, hey, take your time, start from a yearling or babies. It'll pay off in the long run. No one also told me to hold anything back. So when I'm producing all these animals year 1, year 2, I'm not holding anything back, and that was a big mistake. But I bought a lot of adults, and they looked aged, but I was able to produce with them because, you know, I took the time to learn right out of the gate, a lot of study hours. I worked graveyard at the time, and all I did was read. Mm-hmm. And I produced fairly well with, I'm guessing, a lot of animals that people weren't producing with. But what I'm getting at is when they're a certain age and or when you move adult hognose, they do not reacclimate. If I sent you one from the West Coast to the East Coast and it was 5 years old, it's a 50-50 shot if that thing's going to produce and or not look like a piece of jerky in 2 months. I mean, And it's just the Hognose. They're just not the brightest, but I love their face. I love the Morphs. I love the customers. My Hognose customers are my favorite people.
Nice.
And they're super passionate about Hognose. And I can't stand the word noodle, but it goes along with Hognose.
Yeah.
When people say it to me, I say, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?"
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I love the Hognose. I mean, and I like the people I've met. Fathom Hogs, John and Mitchell. They're two of my best friends. Mitchell's more of a best friend. John, I call him Uncle John. But I mean, Hognose has brought me a lot of great friends because the Hognose market, it's not at the tip right now. I mean, there's a long way to go here. This thing won't belly out for 10 years, and I want to make the cool stuff too. And I want to, I can't wait to see what my friends make. I don't get jealous of somebody doing, a world's first. I'll say, okay, well, I want to buy some hats, or whatever, I'll put money towards it. So I like to see what everybody's doing. And I definitely, I think Hognose is really one of the 5 animals, probably 3 animals that solely shot the reptile market to the where it's at. And I think, we talked about China, Hong Kong specifically, South Korea, Japan. That also was a big precursor with, YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, It's all been very positive for the hobby. Also, people's standards of keeping has gone through the roof because they see how other people do it. And people that show that stuff, they're very proud of what they have, and how they keep it. And I think people, it's just broadened the knowledge of keeping animals specifically, but it's also pushed the market. Like when I did the show in April, it was more people than I'd ever met at a show that was their first show. And they had their kids, 2-3 kids, and like, oh yeah, we watch this on YouTube, and then all of a sudden, the promoter locally is an amazing promoter. He really shells the money out for promoting, billboards, signs, TVs, whatever. Radio ads, goes on the morning news, but people are like, we didn't even know this exists, and then they're buying their first snake. But I'm just saying the market, the industry, the hobby, whatever you want to call it, it's not even close to the top. We got so far to go here, and Hognose, I think, is probably one of the driving main species. Ball pythons will always be responsible for carrying us to the length that we're at. And I do love balls for that. And I do love a lot of ball pythons. I like a lot of the recessive genes, but I tease about them like you brought up.
Yeah. So with hogs, you obviously have produced a ton of them. I had a banner year with hogs last year, and this year it's kind of a crap year, but that's all right. But it made me think, like, what the hell's different between last year and this year? Because these are the same animals, same enclosures, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm kind of like writing a book on Hognose too, so there's that. So what's your style of keeping with them? Because,
I like to keep them in smaller enclosures. I like to keep them at more of an ambient than a cool and a hot. My determination for that is I've watched how well my babies do at ambient. Mm-hmm. No issues with digestion. They blow up. I do cool everything. If I have babies in October, they're going down. And I've noticed that the longevity of the animal, if it's a North American species, really does need the brumation or hibernation. I guess people are trying to get rid of the word brumation. I grew up on the word brumation, but I've taken king snakes and took these two and put them down, these 2 females, and these 2 females that didn't. And they're down for 3.5 months, and by the next summer, they're still the same size. And then the 2 snakes that I put down for the winter from the very beginning, double clutch, and the other 2 don't. Mm-hmm. So that's why, I don't know. I kind of went off base of what you were asking, but I keep Hognose in smaller tubs. I keep them clean because Hognose, like many snakes or all snakes, have the scent gland. You've seen the bulb bud on Hognose. Mm-hmm. They get that swollen scent gland. I've determined personally that the reason it swells is because the cage is dirty. They smell themselves. They don't express their scent gland. you keep the cage clean, fresh bedding more often, they re-scent their cage, and you don't get a stuffed up stink gland. Once that thing swells, it's swollen, and there's no going back. Yeah. You can express it all you want. It's going to swell back up. But hognose need to be kept clean, and they need to be fed more frequently than a king snake. You can't go every 7 days with a hognose. That's me personally. I like to do every 3 to 4, and I like to do smaller meals. And I mean, you have hogs, you might go every 7 days, but I also break it up too. I do some crazy stuff with feeding, and I tell people this all the time. I'll feed once every 5 days for 3 weeks, and then I'll feed every third day for 10 days, and then I'll take a 10-day off, and then I'll start feeding again. And I'm telling you, these snakes grow bigger and faster and stronger than somebody that does every 7 days. You got to play with that metabolism. It's just something I've kind of started doing just to see where it goes. And hognose really benefit from that.
Yeah, no, there's actually science backing that. There was a really cool.
Really?
Yeah, there's a really cool study.
That's just my study. So that's interesting.
Once again, the indigo snakes. This was done in the zoo world, but they are trying to figure out a way to get the indigos that they were releasing to a certain size by a certain time point. Because whether we like it or not, when you're raising animals for release, you get a batch. You want to get them to a certain size and out the door, so you can get another batch, because time is money and money is time, kind of thing. And They did this cool study where they did like one rodent every 7 days, which is what we oftentimes do. And then they did same rodent, but they change it up. Like rodent, they give it after 3 days, and they give it after 7 days, and they give another one 2 days, which is kind of like a foraging snake in nature. And then they did another thing where they did rodent chick. And the thing that caused the best growth was rodent chick sporadically. And that makes sense, because you're given different macromolecules and different, like a bird is made up of different proteins than a rodent, and it's made up of the same proteins at the same time. But no, I just stumbled onto that like in the past month and thought, holy hell, like this might be what I do now. I've been doing it for 3 years. I kid you not. I got people that can back it, because I tell them that, and they kind of look at me like, that's not, they need to be on a schedule. Mm-hmm. But I love it. I mean, Dylan of D's Balls and Exotics, he's one of my good buddies. He's 3 hours north of me, 2 hours north of me. I mean, when he started buying my king snakes, I told him, you got to do it like this. And he was kind of like perplexed by it. And I said, you don't look back on it. You'll appreciate it. Different sizes, different times, long periods off, frequent feedings for long or short periods, and just be crazy with it, And I watched my snakes just flourish. Yeah. Well, my false water cobras, I've got those 2 enormous breeders that are over 8 feet. And I haven't gotten anything close to that. I've got 6-footers, but I don't have those big monsters. And I went back, I took notes on everything. And sure enough, when you look at the feeding rates, I was feeding those females chicks, quail, rats, and mice sporadically. And I went to a primarily rodent diet every, I think it was Monday, Thursday when they were growing. And the sporadic multiple items diet led to those big healthy beasts, and the methodical diet didn't. So
100% agree with it, because my driving force behind this was I found this rubber boa, and I flipped this piece of siding or whatever, and it was in Kalama, Washington. So this rubber boa under it, and there's a nest with 10 mice in it, and the adults are in there, and it's hanging out under there. And I came back 3 days later, and I opened that, looked under it again. There's a snake. There's 3 less mice, and the snake's still laying there. And I came back 2 days later, and the mice were all gone, and the snake's still laying there. And a month later, that snake was still under that board, and there was no mice. It ate all those in 5 days. And for a month, it hadn't moved, as far as my opinion goes, or what I saw. And, now it's going to go find another 10 baby mice to eat in a row, over a 5-day period.
Mm-hmm.
And when I kind of saw that, I thought, these things eating on a schedule, it's not the way they're going to do it in the wild. And most snakes are producing by their second year in the wild, from what I've determined, from what I can see, And especially the hognose. Hognose in the wild, from what I've seen, like videos and stuff, I try to get them to 175 grams, but I've seen people taking pictures of gravid hognose that look like they're maybe 140 grams or even smaller. So,
yeah, no. So then
and sometimes even, getting animals back to feeding, people are frustrated when, adult animals aren't taking medium or adult sized mice. But, oftentimes if you offer them pinkies or fuzzies, just smaller meals, the animal will actually start back up on their feeding response too.
Totally agree. Yeah. I'm also I'm not for the power feeding. I watched the K brothers. Most people don't even know who those guys are, years ago, and they did a video on frequent feeding. And that's part of what got me into how I do my colubrids, frequent feeding over power feeding. So
cool.
With long periods of layoff. But
so with the hogs, what are you feeding them? Have you ever had issues? Let's just start with neonates and work our way up. So, I've been fortunate that I've not had issues, but some people have issues with certain morphs and bloodlines and whatever, getting them to eat. Any tricks of the trade to get stubborn animals to eat that you may have?
Well, I make sure I'm prepared before they start hatching, because I don't want to be the guy looking for stuff. I tell you what, hognose prefer dead over live. Every 20th hognose will only eat live, but they definitely prefer dead over live. I don't brain pinkies. I just go straight to tuna water, and I just dip the muzzle of the mouse in it, and I put it right underneath their nose, and they sniff it and lick it, and then they eat. And then so out of the 20, 10 of them ate frozen thawed without no scent. You got 7 of them on tuna water, one live, and you got the other 2 holdouts. And what I do is I go scoop some tadpoles out of the lake with a butterfly net, and I freeze them for 2 weeks. And what I do is I get the little deli cup out and tadpoles. I don't smash them or anything. I just leave them in there with the water and then freeze. And I just take my mister and I mist the top of the water because I don't wait for it to thaw. I want it, and then I just drag the pinky over top of that where it's wet now, and everybody eats. Only one time in 6 years of hognose, I had to feed. I tried a toad. I tried everything, silverside, pinky, live, everything. This snake, I'm like, this thing's got folds on it. Like, I tried quail egg. People think chicken egg. Quail egg works. Chicken egg doesn't, in my opinion. And I threw a live tadpole in the deli cup, and that thing hit that sucker so fast and so hard. And it's one of my breeders right now. It's a Conda Het Snow female, and she ate all but 2 of her eggs this year, and she was paired to a Super Yeti. So I think she consumed about $15,000 worth of eggs.
There you
10, and I got 2 to hatch, and both of them are Super Conda albinos. So not even a Conda Snow came out of this too. And that's another thing we should talk about. People with hognose. If you peek at your hognose while they're laying eggs, you just made yourself a bird. And the hognose knows that bird's going to eat those eggs. And who should have the nutrition, the bird or the snake? It's already depleted. They eat their eggs. So,
yeah, I had one eat.
I did that twice this year.
Oh, my God. Yeah, last year I had one, and I caught it. I watched her lay the eggs. Came back like 5 hours later and was watching her eating the damn egg I watched her lay. I was like, what in the hell? And I knew they did that, but it's just kind of shocking to see it. So
yeah, it's I only had an issue one time in the past, and she was eating the infertils. So I literally watched this hognose eat the infertils. She went to the fertils, kind of nudged them like she went. I think she was like checking. And then I took them, but this year, so I get up at 6 a.m., 5 a.m., and I go to work at 8:30, or I got to be there by 8:30. I leave the house at 8. I'm checking for eggs, and these snakes are in the middle laying. And you can either pull the tub out and they see you look at those eggs, they're going to eat it. If you rob the clutch, like my biggest female, she probably had 14 eggs in her. She had laid 9, and I had already disturbed her. So I said, okay, I take these 9. Those next 5 are not going to be there when I get home. So I took the 9, came home at lunch, jammed home. She was full belly. She ate the 5. Because, I took the 9. The bird came and took the eggs. It's going to come back. It's going to finish the job. That's really what they're thinking.
That's it.
And hognose of all species, you know as well as I do, they look so depleted when they lay.
Oh, they look horrendous. Yeah.
And you have to feed them micro meals, basically. You got to, before they're laying, I switch from small mice to fuzzies, and I try to go almost every other day, just to keep them well fed. But
no, cool. So then, brumation. What's your strategy on that front? Do you get into it, like drop them all the way down to 50, or just turn off the heat and let them drop to whatever the room gets to, or how do you go about that?
I keep my males at the bottom of the racks because the garage gets about 54, 56 from October till April if I let it. But with the mini split, I cranked it on in January. So October, I shut off the heat panels. The males are at the bottom, and the temperature down there, if the garage is 56, it's more like 51, 50.
Huh.
And that's it, man. I was just lucky with the colubrids in Washington State. It's that easy for me.
What about relative humidity for your hognose? Do you tend to keep them at a more humid environment during your brumation cycle, or do anything special in that manner?
No, I would. So I was discussing this the other day with a friend with that amount of water cups, and then the monitor cages. They're pretty tight, but I'm constantly misting. As warm as the room is, with all those water cups, the humidities, relative humidity in Washington State, I think, excuse me, between 50 and maybe 65. I bet you my room is closer to, not much more, but you can definitely feel the difference. And I also have live plants in my room. I love plants and cacti, so they kind of bring the humidity up. But I bet you it's around 70, and it's probably like that. When it's colder, though, like the humidity dries up with cold. But I don't have any issues with bad sheds, that's for sure. They do seem to, you throw the moist cocoa in there, they really do like to dig through it and stuff. But I think humidity is definitely a benefit for them to a point. You don't want them at 20%, that's for sure.
No. Yeah, no. So with there's all these morphs, and that's the, I'm gearing up for the Hognose book. I've been reading my ass off over the past year, and it's funny because I'm doing all the natural history, ecology, nerdy academic stuff, and I love that, and I love the husbandry, and I there's lots of different ways to keep hogs, and I like the fact that like you were talking about, I actually like the hognose snake community. I like that there's naturalistic keeping, there's rat keeping, and there doesn't seem to be that whole I'm going to burn your house down because you don't agree with me attitude, which is kind of nice. But I've been researching all that. I'm not really a morph guy. I'm a locality guy. I'm not poo-pooing morphs. I just don't know anything about them. And with hognose snakes, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn the morphs tonight. That was a funny, naive thought because there's so freaking many of them.
I feel like there's a lot of made up ones.
Yes, and there's a lot that I look at with a skeptical eye, and I'm going to leave it at that. It kind of reminds me of the ball python world where there's like this yellow snake and this yellow snake and this yellow snake, and I'm like, they're all yellow snakes. I don't understand what makes them different. And there's some of them though that I can like see them. John Barry's book's really good at defining what the phenotypes are and all that kind of stuff. But morph wise, what are you keeping and why? Like, because there's so many. There's it would be. I'm certain somebody probably has all of them or close to all of them. But there's literally hundreds of different morphs, and then combination wise, there's probably thousands of potential combinations if you want to get technical. But what do you go for as far as your morphs?
Excuse me. It seemed like, well, I personally like the snows, and people went so hard into sable.
Yes.
That snow got left behind. And then they went so hard into Arctic as well. Snow got left behind. And the value of the snows went up, which is great. Like I say, the animal's more valuable. Unfortunately, with this, the way we work as humans, you take care of what's valuable, you know. You're not gonna lose a gold chain that's $5,000, but you might forget, you know, where you put that stainless steel chain, you know, and you take it off at the pool. But anyway, so I love snow and I love Conda. I don't actually like super Conda as much as I love Conda.
Yep.
I like, because Conda is never the same. You got some Condas that have perfect circles. You got other that have stripes and this, that, and the other. I got a lot of toffee. I got lemon, ghost. I got a lot. I do have some sable stuff, and I have a lot of Arctic stuff. And then I should send you a picture of it.
Yeah.
Mitchell of Fathom Hog says the first one he's ever seen. I hashed it here. It's a genetic stripe hognose.
Oh, cool.
It's a super Conda with a perfect dark stripe. And I'm raising that. And I kept a clutch made of it that had similar characteristics. So it'd be really cool if I can reproduce that. And then I have the dark. And I'm sure you've really seen me post it. I believe there was only like 4 of them in the world. I think there's probably more now. John has one from Fathom. John and Mitchell are partners. He bred the male to 3 females. Mine's a female. And I bred an Arctic Conda, het sable, possible het albino, and toffee to it. I'm keeping the whole clutch back. They already hatched. That whole dark thing without the headband and all that stuff didn't show up. But John bred his to some females, and I believe he had a couple pop out of there. So those females must have been from the lineage that he got the male from originally. So I think that's kind of fun, kind of different. Is it going to be like this $50,000 snake? Not even close. Is it the key to something different? You know, when you add, you know, it's a dark snake. It came out pitch black, and it's like gray with like a tan color. It's really weird. Every time it shed, it got lighter, but it's not Arctic, and it doesn't have the headband. I saw that guy in Europe, he had some hatch last year, and he called him Skullface. But I don't know if that's the same thing or not. Who knows, you know? But I put all those eggs in that bucket. I'm going to keep them going, and I'm going to work that snake with that stripe. So,
no, very cool.
Yeah, but I love snow. Snow's a big thing, and I kind of cut back on the tricolors personally. They weren't. This is another one of those things where, you know, I would rather look at my westerns than look at the tricolors. So I'm like, I'm just going to focus on my westerns.
No, I actually have 2 female tricolors from you.
Yeah, that was our first deal, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. My breeder literally bred herself to death.
You can't stop them.
I could not get her to quit. I know. And
That's crazy. I've lost. Yeah, it's once they start, they can go up to 6 clutches, and you can feed them a small fuzzy every day, and they'll still kick over on that 4th, 5th, or 6th clutch. I mean, I know people put them in wine fridges to get them to stop, but they really don't cool like that. So
no, they're in the book because there's.
I read some natural history about them, and I guess they live 2 to 3 years in the wild. They have 1 breeding season, and they die.
Yeah, they're a very different, totally different than our hog. They just look like it, and we talked about this before when we had Kathy Love on. But no, the tricolors are a weird beast. So. I've talked to quite a few tricolor people now, and when I had mine, I just kind of went out early on, way before I was thinking about getting a book. I just thought they were super cool snakes from a natural history perspective, biology perspective, and I bought a male, I bought a female, bred them, got all those eggs, and then absolutely sucked at getting them to eat. I could not get them to eat. And then I listened to you, actually, Shane, when you were on From the Ground Up, and you're like, oh, yeah, I put them in a paper bag, tuna water, and they all eat. I was like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And I've come to find out that there's some people that think that might be like, there's a couple lines of tricolors, and there's some lines that just seem to eat, and there's other lines that, no, I don't want to say they don't eat, because they obviously eat, but they don't eat as well. Do you have any thoughts on that? And how did you get them to eat? Because I'm going to have every person we have on this podcast talk about tricolor hogs, just for indirect redemption for me. Talk about how the hell you get the damn things to eat.
Well, my Uncle Earl went through the same thing as you. He had 3 clutches, not a single baby ate. A guy at the show 2 weeks ago told me, he's an old-time guy. He said he got all these tricolors at hatch, didn't get a single one to eat, lost them all. I don't know that I said tuna water. What I learned from a guy was fish guts.
Fish guts. Sorry.
Just fish guts. And don't have to be in a brown paper bag. You can just throw it in the cage. Literally, they will not turn down fish guts. And you don't have to rip the gut open. You can literally fillet a fish and put the guts in a bag. Never thought. Open it up, take the pinky and swipe it on the inside and throw it in there. It'll be gone the next day. And the craziest thing is 99% of the hognose will eat frozen thawed the very next time without the salmon smell or the fish smell. It could be carp. It could be a trout. It could be a salmon. That iron blood smell, one time, and then they're on unscented frozen thawed. It's like the craziest thing.
Okay, let's define guts. Because... So you literally you got a whole fish, you cut open its abdomen, rip out guts. That's the guts.
Yeah, just kind of, just like when you're cleaning trout, swipe it out, put it in a bag and freeze it. Yep.
All right. Well,
but it's not really the guts as much as it's that, like the blood, the iron, that smell. And like I said, I don't even thought. You're literally dragging pinky across those crystals in the plastic bag.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. They just hammer that stuff.
All right.
So
I'm doing it.
Yeah, you'll have a lot of success with it. You'll be like, wow. But my adults, half of them, well, I don't have any adults right now. I've got juveniles. Half of them come flying out of the cage with their mouth open like half my westerns. And the other half, you can chase them with the mouse and they're not going to eat it, but you throw it in there and walk away. Boom, gone.
Yeah. Did you experience? And Matt's kept these guys as well, so he can.
Yeah,
as well.
I'm actually waiting for a clutch to hatch here pretty soon, anyways, too.
We'll go fishing and get a trout. Did you experience with the males that they go on? Did any of your males go on hunger strikes? Because I had males that would eat every time, and I had other males that were like, "No, F this." And then when they would eat, they were freaking psychotic. Like they normally, my tricolors, like you said, every tricolor I've ever had did that. You open the tub, they come raging out. Except for these damn males. And I think it has to deal with our weather here. I think there's some kind of cue they're picking up after learning about where they live. Because where they live, they get boom bust rain. So there's like no rain at all, and then there's rain. And here in where I'm at in Appalachia, we get like no rain, and then a low pressure system comes in, and we get destroyed this time of year. And this was the time of year that my boys would just be weird. I don't know if there's anything to that, but that's just my theory on it. But anyway,
I mean, I don't doubt it. I tell you what, there's a guy on Instagram. His name's Glenn. His company is Slithers. He's in Canada. He keeps his on Aspen, and his tricolors look gorgeous, amazing.
Yeah.
I keep mine on Aspen for a week. They look like dry jerky. I have to keep mine on either a cocoa, cypress, mix. And his look just beautiful, but they must have a decent amount of humidity in their reptile room, or I don't know what it is, but he uses sandy chips and his look great. I put mine on sandy chips; they can't shed, and they like stiff, and I just put them in a cup with paper towel, and then they shed and they look great. But I don't know. I think humidity is Definitely. I tell people all the time, everybody wants a bioactive cage, the Exoterra with the little bugs and the live plants. I tell people, you want the best snake for a bioactive, it's a tricolor hognose. You put a plant light on that, live plants, sand, soil. That plant light's going to keep the cage at 80. Tricolors do great at ambient 80. I mean, amazing. And that plant light is going to feed those plants and keep that cage at 80. And you can never find that snake until it wants to be found. Just throw a mouse in there, and it's going to eat it every night. I mean, and they burrow, and they are the best bioactive snake. Period.
I agree with that. Definitely.
I think they're excellent. I know a friend that keeps her westerns that way, and her westerns are amazing. Me personally, I don't know how I could do it and do it as like she does. She definitely spends a lot of time daily maintaining it, but westerns I personally believe they don't do so well in bioactives, but she's proven me wrong on that aspect, because hers are beautiful. But I don't think I could pull it off.
Now that's one of the things I'm doing right now for fun is, and it's for the book, the next book is I've got a bunch of PVC enclosures here at my house, and I went out to Kansas and literally went all over Western hognose snake heaven and got all kinds of environmental data and looked at the soil where they were common and where they weren't common. And one of the things I found was that they really, really are sand specialists, even more so than the Eastern hogs. The Eastern hogs are like in a kind of a loamy soil, but Nassicus, the Westerns, were like where you found them, there was sand. Where you didn't find them, there was no sand. And
that's interesting because sand holds humidity deeper. So
it does, but that first, like, if you've got a foot of sand, the first 6 inches is going to be wet after it rains, but within a day, that top layer is not going to have it and have the moisture. It's going to bake away, and then the deeper part's going to have it. So they actually have a natural gradient of humidity, so they can go to where they want, 1 or 2 days after a big rain event. And I set them up with this kind of weird sand, and it's been, granted, they do exactly what the tricolor hogs do. You don't see them. They burrow, and they're down there. And that's what all the natural history says for plains hognose snakes, is that they're going to be under the ground. But it's still a lot of, it's actually like keeping the worms from dune, those sandworms. Because you look in the cage when the lights come on, you can see them moving under the sand. It's actually cool as shit. But that's a conversation for another day. So any other aspects of hognose snake care that, like, is there any quirk about them that just kind of separates them and makes you like them? I mean, you mentioned you like keeled scales. You can't get any better than a plains hog.
Yeah, it's the keeled scales. Keeled scales, the face. I don't think it looks cute. I think it looks tough, personally. I think it's got a cool look to it. I'll tell you what, my first ever hognose, most people, like Michael down in SoCal, he had 10 friends in high school that were into reptiles. Mm-hmm. I had one friend, and we were one friend in Washington, and our parents, we were pretty well behaved kids. The parents would let us jump in my Ford Explorer. We put the back seat down and we roll our sleeping bags. We drive to the reptile show when I had a license. 16 years old, drive 4 hours down South Oregon. And I went down there for some rosy boas because I always had a thing for them. And he talked me into, we'd sleep in the Walmart parking lot, be first in line, 5 a.m, because people line up. Mm-hmm. Super committed. Anyway, he talked me into these hognose. And I remember looking at him at 16 years old down there thinking, these things don't look like they've ever eaten. They had that kind of drapey skin look to them. Mm-hmm. And the guy's like, oh yeah, they'll eat just fine, And we never got those damn things to eat. Mm-hmm. But it sucks though, because I think it was AOL back then, but now all you got to do is ask your phone, and you can find 100 different people saying, try this, try that, try this, try that, or whatever. But when I got them then, I liked them, but I didn't want them because I thought they looked like right out of the egg, And,
Yeah.
But anyway, so maybe that, like, what I was getting at, maybe that kind of did something to the thought process of, because I failed with those at such a young age, when reptiles have always been such a thing for me, that when I came back around after the Rosies, the Rosie Boa collection, I kind of wanted to right a wrong in my mind, like just terraform, then let alone all of a sudden I'm breeding them and then getting all these babies to eat. But I mean, I'm definitely that person. If I definitely want to be able to say just to myself, like, I did it. It's kind of funny. I know people are probably super proud of, everything they do. I don't keep a single picture of any reptiles in my phone. I post it on Instagram and I delete it. If my Instagram got deleted tomorrow, I'd have no evidence of anything I ever produced.
Oh my God.
It's my album. I should probably back that up. You can back it up now. You can request and they can back it up. And I have, my Instagram says I have 240 posts. I have more like 2,000. I archive stuff often because I'll take pictures that aren't too appealing to people. Like, it's not really a cute picture or a nice picture. It doesn't get enough likes or whatever. I'll just archive it. But I keep everything in Instagram, and Instagram's known for deleting everybody. So I probably should change my ways. But I mean, I've got a lot of pictures from the very beginning on like one of those portable hard drives. But anything in the last 4 years is on Instagram, and that's it. So now that I think about it, I really need to do something about that. But you said, "Oh my God!" But you're a different kind of guy. You're doctor. You're Dr. Zach. You got to keep all that stuff. I'm sure you got books and stuff you wrote your notes in.
Yeah, no, they're all in my phone, Shane.
Hey, I'm just some dude, man. I told you guys, don't use any scientific names or I'm getting off the call.
Oh, no. We're good.
No, I'm just saying that's me. Like, I'm just a guy doing this. Like, I'm not, for whatever reason, it really works for me, but I'm not that, I don't know. I guess I do my own research. Like we were talking about, the feeding and stuff. And I tried to breed certain stuff and wasn't capable of breeding it based off, Google how to breed this. And I always tell people, it's like, you can Google how to do jujitsu, but they're always going to leave the last step before the final out. You got to learn it from the Gracies. You can Google how to breed something and it'll pop up there, Reptile Magazine article from 1997, tell you how to breed. But what I did was when I had trouble, I threw all that away. And what I did is, okay, I'm going to look up the natural geographic location of this animal, and I'm going to look up the weather patterns for 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Temperature drops for night, temperature drops for day. That's kind of how I did the Crebos and the fall. I didn't want to Google how to do it. I just did my own research. Like, Crebos never go below 80 during the day for 365 days a year. But for 2 months of that year, their nighttime temp drops into the 60s, 3 months of that year. You wouldn't know that unless you looked it up.
Yep. No, that's...
Yeah, I mean, that's like the best part of the hobby. I mean,
absolutely.
It's really kind of taking all that natural history aspect and really kind of painting a complete picture. And, I mean, that's... we've had some people on the show that have really kind of detailed, one of the most important parts is kind of taking that information and observing your animals and, making judgment calls based on some of those aspects.
Yeah. I just, out of frustration, just said, I'm throwing everything out and kind of starting over and just look it up myself. So, and it paid off, paid dividends.
No, I did the same thing. I got false water cobras here at the house, and I have them up at the university. The animals at the university eat like clockwork every time, and there's weird juju here, and my animals would go off food. And then I did what you did. I like deep dive Weather Spark. Like, I got to figure out what the hell's going on here. They were getting too cold at night. It turns out like night drop are super important to them. So I warmed them back up, and sure enough, start eating again. So, but that took me like a year to figure out. So,
excuse me. Yeah.
Anyway,
That's definitely how those tropical species learn their winter times for sure.
Yeah.
Because during the 9 months out of the year, the night drop could be 2 degrees, maybe 4, but in their winter cycle, it's more like 10 to 15 or even 20.
Yep.
So.
All righty.
But, hey, real quick before we end this, I don't know if that's where you're headed. I did leave a species off that I invested in. I did get the Costa Rican black milks this last year.
Oh, nice.
So there's another colubrid species that I don't ever see myself not working with. I'm really, really enjoying them.
No, we have those at the school. We've had them forever. We haven't bred them yet. Funny story about those. I got 2.2, and then they got old enough to breed. And it turns out I had 0.4. So.
Oh, that's a good problem to have.
So it was like, all right, yay, son of a bitch. Like, that was the way that thought process went. So
I got 2 males and 2 females.
Yep.
That's how I do it now. I used to be 1 to 3 or whatever, but you lose your male, then you're gone. So.
Yep. So we're raising.
Yeah, I always try to do 3.2. That's always my flavor because you just don't know. Because you could even lose a male. Yeah.
No.
It's really not. That's the young part of the hobby, the young person in the hobby that you learn. 1.3 is what I'm buying. I'm going to start this project. You're better off at 2.2, 3.2, 3.4, 3.5, 4.4. Just like not holding animals back. Like that would,
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. You don't realize that. Or buying adults. Just buy the babies. Get to know the snake. Enjoy the process of raising it and letting the project come into fruition.
Yep. All right, man. Well, you keep enough stuff that we are absolutely going to do Shane 2.0. If that's happening.
I'll work on my internet connection for the next one.
That's all good. We figured it out. So if people want to find you, you're definitely on social media. So where do you recommend people go to find you, reach out, interested in a snake from you?
You can only find me at one place, Evergreen State Reptiles on Instagram. And if you don't have an Instagram, you can still Google Evergreen State Reptiles on Instagram and click the email tab, and you can send me an email. I used to do Facebook. My Facebook business page is still up. It's got 5,000 followers, so I just couldn't delete it. I put it in my friend's name, and he's sitting on it for the last 3 years, and it's just there. But I got rid of my personal Facebook. You can't have a business Facebook without a personal, and I really can't stand that platform. Mm-hmm. Instagram is great because you do you, and that's it. People want to follow, they do, and if they don't, they don't. But, yeah, I mean, I do have a morph market. I put one animal a year on there. I'm not sure why I have it. I haven't posted on fauna, but I shop fauna. But I post a lot of stuff available in my stories on Instagram, and it goes quick, which is pretty cool because that's kind of like homegrown. I started that with one follower, and now I got 13,000 or almost. And those people, I post it in the story, DM available, or I post a clutch hatching, and next thing you know, I got a list of 4 or 5 people.
Nice.
It works well.
Yeah. Well, keep it simple. I was telling my students last week the whole philosophy behind KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. That you keep it simple like that. It's just going to work. That's just all there is to it. So, okay. Well, this was fun. Enjoyed the talk. This was a good one. I like the episodes we have where we talk about freaking Drymarchon and Hognose snakes. Like those, you can't get any. There's a lot of diversity just there. So that's bad.
Yeah. It's a broad deal there.
Yeah. So thanks for coming on with us. If you want to find me, go to Instagram, Dr. Crawdad there. I do find myself hanging out there more than Facebook past couple months. It's just simpler and less infuriating. I'm learning that. But I'm also on Facebook because I'm old AF. So you can go there too and find me. And then students, I say this every freaking episode. You want to work with snakes and get a master's degree for crying out loud, reach out and contact me. We have a graduate assistant in our zoo sci major open. And I've got herpetoculture projects floating around my brain that I need a student to do. I just spent 2 weeks in Costa Rica, and we're going to start looking at outdoor enclosures and testing, like, do snakes need UVB and doing it the right way, and it might involve a trip to Costa Rica. So might not promising that, but that's on the horizon. So anybody that's young or old wants to do a master's degree, hit me up because we have opportunities sitting there. So that's where you can find me. Where can people find you, Matt?
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram with Sarpa Mitra.
There you go. So this was a fun one. Thank you all for listening and making it to this point. And we look forward to recording another episode for you in the future. And please keep listening to Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. Thank you all. Have a great morning.